Peter Minnerly Shumway was born in northern Utah in 1853. 8 years later, his future wife, Mary Elizabeth Johnson, was born in southern Utah. The day after Mary turned age 14, she received her endowments in the St. George Temple. Peter moved to southern Utah with his father Charles and met Mary. Mary was short of her 15th birthday when she was sealed to Peter in the St. George Temple. They then went to live in Shumway, Arizona, near Snowflake, where Peter's father Charles moved. Their first 3 of 12 children, Sixtus, Editha, and Eunice, were born in Shumway. In 1889, Peter was operating a mail station between Holbrook and St. John's, Arizona. The 4th child, Peter, was born there. Next they moved to Pinedale, not far from Snowflake, where Arah and Seth were born. By 1895, they had moved to San Juan County, New Mexico, where Anna, Harris, Ruth, Bessie, Lee, and Glenn were born. The youngest photo we have of Mary was taken in about 1908 and shows her with Lee and Ruth. All 14 members of the family are shown in this photo. They had handsome children, as illustrated by Uncle Harris in his World War I uniform. This screenshot shows the family group and family tree. The target person for this video is Arah E, who we called Uncle A. The 1900 census of Fruitland, New Mexico shows Arah as an 8-year-old boy. The 1910 census shows him to be age 20, living in Grayson, later named Blanding. A photo in Family Tree shows Uncle A as a good-looking young man. Uncle A raised his family on the east side of Blanding, on the block between Lee's house and the Peter, Mary, and Uncle Glenn's house. I knew Uncle A and Aunt Grace as shown in this photo, showing them with their son Keith and 2 of Keith's children, Kelly and Kim. Family Tree shows the current deceased children of Uncle A and Aunt Grace. Uncle A and Aunt Grace suffered when their second son, Gerald, was killed in a plane wreck at age 20. Two years later, when their daughter Dixie was age 16, she suddenly died. She was a cheerleader and also a majorette in the San Juan High School band. On December 24, 1943, she had a bad cold and sore throat. They took her to the Moab hospital on Christmas Day, and she died the next day. The doctor said she had meningitis. I was surprised to notice another sad occasion Uncle A suffered in 1914. Family trees showed Uncle A had a second spouse named Emma Caroline Lewis. The only spouse I knew about was Aunt Grace. Surely someone had made a family tree error. It shows that Emma died a few weeks before she was married to Uncle A in the Salt Lake Temple. Why did Uncle A take this 325-mile trip over dirt and gravel roads to be sealed to Emma? Did his parents, Peter and Mary, travel by horse and buggy and go to Salt Lake with Arah so that Mary could act as proxy for Emma? Peter bought one of the first cars in Blanding in 1918. How did Uncle A get to know Emma Caroline Lewis from Kanosh in western Utah? The only photo of Emma in Family Tree is shown here. Caroline is the middle name of her mother shown here, and Emma is the name of her mother's mother shown here. Research on the Lewis family indicates they may have known the Shumways in Arizona New Mexico, and certainly did in Utah. This Google map shows the travels of the Lewis and Shumway families. Arah was born near Snowflake in 1891. Emma is in Snowflake in the 1900 census. Shumways moved to Fruitland, New Mexico by the time the 1900 census was taken. Lewis's are in Fruitland, New Mexico when the 1910 census was taken. But that year Peter followed the San Juan River with his family and livestock into San Juan County, Utah. Peter moved to Utah so his children could have a better education and religious experience. The San Juan Record reported the death of Emma's father, James Nephi Lewis, in 1940 and says he came to Monticello in 1912. 2 years later, Emma died in Moab. What happened? Here is the death certificate for Emma attached to her in family tree. It shows Emma, age 19, was brought to the hospital on March 7, 1914, with a badly broken leg. She had fallen from a sleigh while coasting down a hill. By April 11th, Emma had been suffering for 6 weeks, and Dr. Bruce Easley decided her leg needed to be amputated to save her life, but the operation was unsuccessful and she died the next day. Penicillin was not discovered until 1928. She is buried in the Monticello Cemetery. Question: what was their story? Was she in love with Uncle A? Did Uncle A love her? Aunt Grace answers this question on page 143 in the book The Family of Peter and Mary Johnson Shumway. She says at the time Emma died, Arah and Emma were engaged to be married. After coming to Grayson, Arah went to school for a while, then got a surveying job in Monticello where he fell in love with Emma. I discovered this report in the April 17, 1914 Moab newspaper called the Grand Valley Times. It tells that her leg was broken while coasting down a hill in Monticello with a number of young folks. Dr. Easley was notified, and he advised that she be brought to Moab where she could receive his constant attention. The report says she died on Saturday and her funeral was held on Sunday afternoon in the Star Opera House. The building, now called Star Hall, was built in 1906 by the Moab Ward for social functions. One speaker, John Bailey, said that Emma had a sunny and lovable disposition, that her nature was the personification of all that was good. One of the musical numbers was a violin duet playing the song Sweet Bunch of Daisies, which goes like this. A. Shumway is listed in the newspaper as one of the pallbearers. What about the proxy temple ordinances that were performed for Emma in the Salt Lake City temple a few weeks after she died? The normal waiting time rule for proxy ordinances is 1 year and 1 day. However, in the Family Tree Help Center, one can find this exception rule. It says that with a recommendation from the bishop, there is no waiting period required. Uncle A married Emma 7 weeks after she died, and 5 days later left for a 30-month mission to the southern states. His father had gone to the same mission 28 years earlier. Arah got back home in December 1916, and in 1917, he and his brothers Harris and Seth registered for the World War I draft. Seth was sent to Europe, but A and Harris remained in the USA. In 1919, Arah married Grace Powell in the Salt Lake City Temple. Grace was born in 1897 in Tuba City, Arizona, and lived in Bluff, Utah. This couple had 9 wonderful children: Devar, Gerald, Shannon, Shirley, Dixie, Jolene, Keith, Gary, and Francine, who is not shown. I always liked Uncle A's cheery disposition, but after finding out more about the tragedies in his life, my love and admiration of him has grown. He had a strong faith in God and knew that he would be able to continue his association with Emma, Gerald, and Dixie in the next life. These deaths did not get him down. He planned to marry Emma, but when she suddenly died, he did not get bitter and pivot away from God. He turned to serve God on a difficult Southern States mission. I believe his knowledge that family units will continue through all time and eternity gave him his strength and optimism.